guys, Bill Demas with Off the Clock with your attorneys from Herman Wells. I am joined today by Jason Herman of Herman Wells. As you can see, we are missing our partner in crime, Warren Duffy. Warren is out at mediation right now, fighting the good fight for one of our clients, which we do here very often. So that's why sometimes with these videos, I'll be here and he won't, or he'll be here and I won't, because primarily we're out there fighting for our clients every day. What we want to do today is what we call a little bit of a shareholders spotlight. What we mean by that is we see all these firms, and I know Jason, but you all out there, we want you to know who is Herman and who is Wells. So we're going to have another one with Cliff Wells. That's going to be done in a couple days, and please go and watch it. It'll be awesome. So first of all, I want to introduce Jason Herman. He is the managing shareholder of the firm. So we're just going to ask Jason some questions, get to know him type of thing. And then at the end, we're going to have some lightning round where we're going to ask Jason some questions that he doesn't know what I'm going to ask him. So it gives you a little depth into his, into what he likes, and hopefully it's a little entertaining, and we're all going to have fun with it. So Jason, just a little background. Where were you born?
I was born in Florida, Gainesville, Florida specifically. Lived in Florida pretty much my whole life.
And did you attend high school up there in Gainesville?
No. So my dad was a Methodist minister, and we got moved around from church to church every couple of years. So I went to high school in Sebring, which is in the middle of the state, and then I actually graduated from Melbourne High over on the Space Coast.
All right, Highlands County, Sebring, right?
Yep.
Okay.
You're in racing. There's a big race out.
Yeah, 24 hours of Sebring. Yeah, if you guys have not been, it's a really fun event. It's really great for the local economy of Sebring, and the community comes out, and it's a really cool event, especially if you have younger kids that are into it. It's like an all-day festival. It's fun. So where did you attend college?
I ended up graduating from University of Florida. I started off briefly at Stetson over in DeLand.
Cool.
But I'm a Gator.
I know. That's something that I've tried to get over all these years of knowing you, Jason. And where did you go to law school?
I went to Emory up in Atlanta.
Now, besides being an attorney, which you've been the majority of your life, what other jobs have you done?
I have swept floors and worked in a warehouse at a furniture store. I spent some summers doing work at a daycare. Teacher for kindergarten, first, second graders. Done some church administrative work. And I'm not sure, lots of little odd jobs, some sales jobs, things that most of these were in college or high school or middle school I'm talking about. And then in law school, I was a teacher's assistant and worked at a...
So how did these jobs, especially in college and high school, were sweeping floors and doing the daycare and working in the ministry, how do you think that helps you be a better attorney now?
Well, I think most of those jobs that I did were sort of invisible jobs to people. If you were here to look, you went to that furniture store and you walked in, you didn't necessarily know I mopped the floor. Same thing when I was doing clerical work at a church, putting together bulletins, that kind of stuff. And, I think it just makes you appreciate that there's hard work that went into just about everything that happens that you interact with, And of course, with some of these jobs, it only gets harder if life is a little hard. I was younger then, didn't have a lot of stress in my life, but so for some of our clients, when their house is trashed or they're dealing with an injury, and then they gotta go do some work on top of that, whether it's physical labor or just dealing with 30 kids in the class, it can make it really hard.
And are those life lessons you got from taking care of the kids or working in the furniture store, how do you think that that has shaped the way that you see your clients as people?
I guess we're fortunate to represent pretty much every kind of worker out there, all ages, people that are retired, people that are just getting into the workforce. And so I think, seeing a slice of what people experience in their daily life is good. It helps you have conversations with them, helps you understand what their day-to-day life is like. And, I think between me and someone else in the firm has probably had a similar background, no matter what it is. we can relate to something that someone's done.
Yeah, and I grew up in the restaurant business. My dad had a restaurant for 30 years. So there wasn't a job I didn't do, from sweep the floors and wash dishes sitting on a soapbox when I was 6 years old, to leaving my first law job at 7 o'clock at night and going helping my dad at the restaurant with when a waiter walked out waiting tables. I've done it all, and I found that as I have interacted my whole life with everybody across every range of life, when I represent somebody in my disability practice and they say, well, my back hurts and I can't do my job as a church secretary, let's say, or clerical, some people say, well, you sit all day. How can that be hard? But if you've done the job, you can realize how that's hard, sitting all day, especially if you have a back injury or sweeping floors. If you have a back injury and you got to sweep a floor, that's hard work.
Sure.
So I love the fact that we're very similar, to where we've had jobs that allow us to have a peek into our clients' lives, which I think makes us more efficient in representing them going forward. And in our questions, go ahead.
I'm not sure I'd want to have an attorney here that didn't have some job outside of law, just because you learn how to work somewhere else too before you start becoming a lawyer.
Right.
You know,
And we're lucky here, because if you look at what a lot of our attorneys have background of, we have one that was an auto mechanic, one that was an insurance salesman and worked in restaurants. We have another one that was in the Army Reserve. So we have and was a mechanic in the reserve. So we have a bunch of attorneys here that have these diverse backgrounds that I think help us better, because when we were having these meetings, which we do meet about our files we were having the meeting the other day, and Corey Powell was talking about, well, hold on, that's really happens X, Y, and Z, because he spent 5 years as an auto mechanic.
Yep.
So he had this understanding of how this accident happened on the PI. And then we were talking the other day about something with a little insurance issue, and Warren, who sold insurance for a lot of years, we're bringing up points about what the policy may say and what agents sell and what coverage is, and it's all this real world experience that we've now folded into our representation of clients.
Well, when we go to trial on a case, one of the jury instructions that the jury gets is, you're allowed to use common sense in your own experience. And so when we're trying to be better trial lawyers, the more diverse experiences we bring to the table as a firm, the better we're going to do, because it's hard to see a point of view that you've never had before.
Absolutely. Now, when you started becoming an attorney, what was your first job as an attorney?
My first job, I worked in-house at Travelers Insurance Company in their coverage insurance department.
All right. So for people that aren't, up on the lingo, what does in-house mean?
So I didn't work for a law firm. I was getting paid by the insurance company and working at the insurance company's office in Atlanta, Georgia, working in a cubicle at that time, looking at claim files and helping decide what should be done with that claim.
Now, when you say coverage, meaning whether or not an accident or a loss fell under a policy or could be covered by a policy?
Yeah, exactly right. And, one of the things that you do, as we call it coverage counsel, is a big part of my job is writing what we call coverage opinions. So in other words, this is my thought on whether this thing or this part of this thing would be covered, and if so, how much should you pay, or in the case of a liability case, should you defend this company or this person or not, and what should you do next under your policy.
So that's very interesting, because we get a lot of calls here of people call you up and say, hey, Jason, hey, Billy, I had this happen at my house. I had this happen to my boat. I had this happen to my car. And I called my insurance agent and he said, report it. And then when I called the adjuster, she said, let me look into it. And then sent me a letter that said, this isn't covered by my policy. So the fact that you did this coverage work, that gives you a unique perspective of how insurance companies look at these claims, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's really the same thing we do now, because when I got a coverage assignment in and I said, hey, we'd like you to give us an opinion, it was almost always after the adjuster either made a decision already or came to some kind of roadblock and I don't know what to do. But a lot of times we were looking at the adjuster's decision, again, we were reviewing it and saying, do we agree with it or not? Which is really exactly what we do now when someone calls us, and says the adjuster told us my claim wasn't covered. All right, I'm gonna look at it now and see, do I agree or not? If we don't agree, now instead of telling the insurance company they want to change your mind in a memo, we do that in the form of letters and lawsuits.
Okay. So it seemed like you worked as an insurance defense attorney for a while. How many years?
My first 10 years of practice, I was doing defense work.
Okay. And at some point you left working for the insurance company itself and went to work for a private law firm?
Yep. That's when I moved to Florida. I took the bar in Georgia, then I took it in Florida, and then moved down here and started working for a small insurance defense firm, defending a lot of the local or the state-run insurance companies or domestic carriers. Citizens was a big client of ours, but did some other work as well, and then moved on from that to a large law firm in Tampa,
Okay.
also doing the same thing.
Now, what made you leave and open your own firm, moving away from the insurance company to represent individuals like our clients?
So a big part of it is that when you're working privately for an insurance company, you're first of all you're paid by the hour. You are and you're measured at your law firm by how many hours you can bill to an insurance company in a given day, week, month, year. And that is your primary purpose, not the results you get. And insurance companies are very concerned about your bills, sometimes even more than the result you get. And so I tried a case before a jury there, won it, and it was just sort of business as usual, get back to billing. And there's no insurance companies kind of almost don't care what you're doing quite as much, and they're a giant machine. Our clients now, small businesses, individuals, if we get a result for them, it makes a big difference in their life, to their business. Also, the measure of success is very simple now. It's just the results we get. If I get a bad result for a client, we don't get paid. We don't charge them anything for that. And I like that metric. It's real simple. I think it's how lawyers should be judged when we're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
Is we get paid based on what we do for the client, not how much time we spend. Especially if we're not efficient, that doesn't help anyone except for lawyers. They're charging by the hour.
And I was an insurance attorney too for 12 years, 13 years. It all blurs together. But to Jason's point, there were times that you're telling an insurance client, you don't want to take this to trial. You don't want to take this to trial. You don't want to take this to trial, but they want to go anyways. So you take it to trial. And then you go and you do a fantastic job and you win. And you go back and you say, we got the results. We got the verdict. We won. And they go, see, I told you we should have taken this to trial. Now let's look at your bills. Why did you charge me for this? And why did you charge? Or if you lost, it was, again, well, we just wanted to fight the good fight, or we just wanted to do this, or we just took a swing at it. Let's talk about your bills. Representing a person, you get them a result, it changes, in a lot of cases, because I do disability litigation, it changes people's lives. It gets, in what you do majority, it gets a roof fixed over their head. In our PI clients, it gets their medical bills paid and their treatment paid and gives them money so they can obtain treatment down the road. I like the idea that we facilitate change in people's lives, and those are the results that you're talking about, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when people come to us, something bad has happened all the time, 100% of the time, and if we can help them, we're helping take that bad thing and make it less bad. Hopefully fix it altogether. When the case of damage to their house, I mean, if you get enough money to repair, that problem's done. The other thing is, when I worked for insurance companies, we had some pretty severe restrictions on how we can handle cases. Sometimes we weren't allowed to work in pairs. Like here, we try every single case with at least two people. Sometimes we get more than that on there because that's what it takes to win. I couldn't research sometimes without getting approval from an adjuster because they thought we should just miraculously know the latest law and be able to quote it by memory, where we do what it takes here to win a case, and we don't worry about getting someone's approval to do the work we know it needs to happen so we can win.
Right. And I want to talk to you about something because it's something that you said to me and that you said to the firm a bunch of times. And every time you say it, I smile because I really like it. And it's one of the reasons why I'm here is that you said that in this firm, trials are the most important thing. So when one of us has a trial, all 10 of us have a trial and we all load up for bear and we go. Can you explain the importance of that philosophy for this firm?
Yeah, I mean, we call it trials first, right? 'Cause it's just easier to say. But yeah, absolutely. We've got so trial is the end, the end game for every single case. Most cases don't go to trial, but if you build them to go to trial, they settle better, faster, for more money. And it's hard to know which ones are going to go, so you got to prepare them all to go. And when it comes time, I mean, that's when your clients there, they're going to be on the stand themselves. They're going to watch you represent them, and you better do a damn good job of that, And so, and that's you're in the arena at that point when you're in trial. And I think our job is to do whatever it takes to win, and that usually means a bunch of work, a bunch of help, and you can't always see your own golf swing. So having people give you feedback on opening statements, or you know, I'm thinking about asking this question, or maybe I'll ask it this way. The more you prepare, the better you're going to do. So, and yeah, then that means sometimes we set aside other stuff to work on these cases. It means sometimes we skip home to do it. That's the game.
Right. I mean, you're actually supposed to be in trial this week. We're in the case, with the vernacular, it's settled on the courthouse steps. But last Monday, to your point, the whole firm sat around and listened to Keith, who is your litigation partner for that trial, give a part of his opening statement, and we all gave him feedback. There was 13 people giving him feedback on that. So that's how we do it here, and that's what I love about being here. So let me ask you just a couple basic questions about the firm. When did you open Herman and Wells?
We opened in 2015.
Okay. And who's the Wells in Herman and Wells?
So Cliff Wells, good friend of mine. Cliff and I were friends for a very long time before we joined up and started our firm. For I don't know how many years, more than 10, had a regular Thursday sit down with each other, had some beers, sometimes had some wings, and we would basically just talk about legal issues, and just do kind of what you're talking about. Here's what I'm thinking about doing, share ideas, just get some feedback. Anytime any of our non-lawyer friends would come and have beer with us, they would tell us this was the most boring, nerdy thing they could possibly imagine. Why would we do this every single Thursday? But we loved it. And we came to really trust and rely on each other doing that. And so when I left the big firm, we had a conversation and we thought it'd be good to join forces. And I think we ended up trying our first case together about maybe 2 months after we joined up.
Awesome. So how many attorneys are there now currently at Herman and Wells practicing?
There's 10 of us.
Awesome. And how many paralegal and support staff?
So we have one paralegal per attorney. So there's a team of attorney and paralegal on each file. And then a couple people at the front desk, someone that helps us with intake, marketing. So there's about 20 of us total here.
Our magical marketing director, Stephen, who is, lurking in the shadows somewhere with this filming. So what types and areas of law do we practice here at Herman Wells?
So generally we help people that something bad's happened and they need help. And we try to do this as much as possible on a contingency fee so that people aren't kind of to come out of pocket to get representation. But breaking it down into the specific, we do 4 things. We represent people that have been hurt, or if their loved one was killed in a wrongful death case. We help people that are fighting their property or casualty insurance company on an insurance coverage claim. We also, on the ERISA side of things, which is what you do, obviously, we have people mostly with disability claims there, and that's under their employer benefits policies. And then we help folks that have construction issues, property damage caused by bad construction, which we call construction defect cases.
And when I look down this list of attorneys that we have here, um, you've kind of put together sort of an all-star team because Alan Gustafson, who does our construction litigation, ran the construction litigation practice at a large national defense firm for many years. So he was on the other side, and he's now come over to do construction here. You had done it on the other side. Um, I hate doing this, but speaking for me, I do the arrest and the disability litigation, which there's maybe a handful, two handfuls of us in the state that do it.
Right.
And then if you look down the line, it's former prosecutor, this person. All these people have so much experience helping people, and I'm always impressed on that group of how you had them coalesce to work together. And what I do want to talk about is what you had said about Cliff, and you and Cliff were friends before. And I say this because one of the joys I have working here is that I've known Jason for a very long time before I started working here. I know um, Cliff, Keith Stahl, and I, Keith's one of the property insurance attorneys, and I tailgated with each other for 15 years at the Bucks. Warren and I have known each other. So you go down the list, and it's almost like a group of friends that have known each other for a long time, came from all other parts of life, and now kind of work for the singular purpose of helping our clients. And that's the great thing because there's not a lot of that. There's no backstabbing. There's no me stepping on somebody to get ahead or you being fearful that somebody's going to get a better result than you. It's all about helping the client because we're all friends first and foremost, and we want to help our clients together. So we'll miss dinner to listen to somebody's closing statement or sit with somebody and have a beer and go over what they're thinking about a case because we all want the best for each other and our clients. And I can tell you, being at other firms, that's very rare. I'm telling you guys out there, that's very rare at a law firm. It's usually super competitive. Um, so what what is your mantra, your motto, your goal? How would you describe what the mission statement is for the work ethic for your attorneys and staff here at Herman Wells?
Well, the biggest thing is we want to take away the stress that our clients are facing. You know, when they call us, it's usually they don't know what to do. They're encountering a new situation. Oftentimes they've been told no by an insurance company, you know, you're wrong. And we want to take that away by giving them information, you know, telling them, hey, we've dealt with this before, usually hundreds of times, and here's how it usually goes. Let's explain the process to you. Now let's tell you how we plan to make you so you can win, you know, and make them so that they're powerful now. So instead of feeling like it's me versus this insurance company, I've got no resources. No, we've done this before. This is something we know how to handle. This is something that's going to go your way, you know, like it has for many clients.
And I love the fact that the more we talk about it in the attorney meetings, the more we talk about it with, our firm meetings and things like that, one term keeps on coming up again and again and again. And I think it just kind of distills everybody's attitude here, and it's relentless. Yep. We work and we work and we have fun with each other while we work, but at the end of the day, it's trials first. You can't build a house on sand, so you got to build that foundation. And you got to be relentless, and you got to chase all the little things in the beginning, because if not, you get to the end and you figure it out that, well, you can't get the Z if you've never done A, B, and C.
Right. Yeah, I think, you got to play the long game with this stuff. I think when you're getting to trial, you should have already, as much as you can, win it before you get there, because you've done the work, because you spotted the issues. I love going to trial with, answers to questions that the other side may not even bring up because we're ready for it. And a lot of times it's not because this case we came up with this thing. I mean, we're pulling from what we did 4 cases ago. We've seen it before. We've used it before. We may make it better the 4th time, but we're still using it. But, you got to anticipate the issues, you gotta anticipate the response to whatever you bring up with another response, and the deeper you go, the more chess you play, the better you're gonna get the outcome.
That's awesome.
And also, obviously, you gotta do the work.
You gotta do the work. And so now this is my favorite time of it. We're going into the lightning round. We get to ask Jason a bunch of questions. He doesn't know what these questions are, so I'm really looking forward to this because I came up with the questions. So start with an easy one. How many kids and what ages?
I have 2 kids. I have a boy who's 13, and I have a girl that is 4.
Okay. Besides spending time with your family, what is your favorite activity, pastime, or hobby?
I like to go camping and hiking in the woods and mountains. It's my favorite thing.
Favorite flavor of ice cream?
Cookies and cream.
Favorite movie of all time?
Oh, man. I'm gonna go with Braveheart.
What is your opinion on what is the best sitcom of all time?
How I Met Your Mother.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke, 0.
Ketchup's on eggs or no?
If it's on a sandwich, maybe.
But just a plain scrambled egg, no ketchup.
I would not do it, but I have done it if my kids didn't eat their whole plate.
Thin or thick crust pizza?
Thin.
Do you like candy corn?
It's a love-hate relationship.
Do you like the chicken wing or the chicken drummy?
Drummy.
Would you take the corner brownie or the brownie from the middle?
I'm a middle guy, for sure.
If you had one meal that you had to eat, we call it the death row meal. What would be the main course and what would be the dessert? Your final meal.
Lasagna and some kind of chocolate peanut butter pie.
If you had one album to listen to for the rest of your life, you're on a desert island and they only give you one album or CD, what would it be?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know. That's a tough one.
See, I stumped them with that one. An artist or group that's no longer touring for whatever reason, maybe they're passed away or they just stopped touring, that you never saw but you would have loved to see them.
I mean, I don't see how anyone wouldn't say the Beatles to that.
Okay. Your first celebrity crush.
Not sure who my first celebrity crush was. I'm picturing her. Who was an E.T. and then like grew up to be a
Drew Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore. Probably that'd be it. Some kind of 90s movie person, right?
And your last question. Would you rather the ability to speak every language or speak to animals?
Speak every language.
Awesome. Well, Jason, thanks very much for being here. As I said, we just wanted to give you a taste of who the people are behind the names, to let you know that they're just not some stuffed shirt guys that sit in this office and command the troops. They're actually there. They're actually trying cases. They're actually working with us on all these cases. When you call into the firm, you can ask to speak to Jason. You can ask to speak to Cliff, and they can't put you on the phone with them. They'll just set a time for you to talk to these guys. That's how we work it here. So, Jason, as we sign off, why don't you give them all the firm information and tell them how they can get in touch with us?
Yeah, you can get in touch with us by calling us, 727-821-3195. Also our website, hermanwells.com, has a lot of information on it, has contact details for all of us, including me.
All right, well, guys, thank you very much. Again, we're going to do another one of these with Cliff Wells. You get to know all about him. All the lightning round questions are going to come to him, too. Hopefully, I can stump him on a couple, too. Next time when I be back, hopefully Warren will be here, so I won't have to fly solo. You guys can have somebody pretty to look at, and we'll go from there. Be safe, and I look forward to talking to you guys again. Bye-bye.